Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna work with this little sad creature over here. This is actually a pretty nice orchid. It's a Dendrobium aphyllum, the variegated form, and I purchased it a few months ago, and I hoped it would start to root out or grow something from the base, a new cane. This is how they usually grow. But no, I see that all of these roots are not good anymore, and the orchid maybe has a problem at the base. I don't know about these eyes. I don't know if they're viable, because what I decided to do is start to shrivel uncontrollably and also produce 3 keikis along the cane. Now the good news is the keikis do have roots. They're viable and trying to grow. They're just not gonna grow at this level because before they even mature, they will just dehydrate. Their roots will not receive any hydration from the medium, and I certainly will not spray them multiple times a day. And in the end, the mother cane will just shrivel off and the keikis will be lost. So what we're gonna do today is save them, pot them up, and I'm gonna show you how I go about it, because it's not as easy as just removing them and plucking them into something else. That actually doesn't work all the time, and I'll tell you why. So anyway, hope you'll enjoy today's video. If you do end up enjoying it, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps it out. Leave me a comment letting me know what your experience with saving Dendrobium keikis is. And hey, why not subscribe? I post 3 times a week. And with that said, it's time I get myself a better pot, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, just like the Dendrobium anosmum and perishi, the aphyllum is one of those dendrobiums that grows in the warmer seasons and then takes a winter rest, a little bit of a cool down, a dry period, loses all of its leaves, it is deciduous, blooms, and then it starts all over again. So the fact that the cane has no leaves, that's normal. That's not the problem here. And because it actually grows so much in the summertime, I personally do like to keep these orchids in a self-watering pot or a, let's say, bigger pot. Yes, I know you will read articles on the internet telling you to use the smallest sized pot for dendrobiums because they're just gonna bloom better for whatever reason. In my experience, that's just not true. I have great bloomings with my dendrobiums in no matter what type of pot I have them, mounted as well, where, you know, there's no constriction. It all has to do with the quantity of water that the pot retains, really. There's nothing more to the size of the pot, in my opinion and in my experience. So for these dendrobiums, because they drink so much water in the summertime, and as you know, the climate here doesn't help me with it, I prefer to use either self-watering pots, either larger pots that can actually hold the amount of roots, which is not tiny on these dendrobiums. So this pot, by all means, I believe it's absolutely perfect for an aphyllum. The problem is these keikis will not be removed from the mother cane. I want them to utilize everything this mother cane has, because it's not only water, which yes, I can provide as well, it's also food. And I'm not talking about nutrients, which again, I can provide. I'm talking about prepared food, food that results after photosynthesis. And yes, you might say this cane does not have leaves and it doesn't photosynthesize. It actually does with the stem. Or if it doesn't, it already has already made food stored in the cane, because that's what these dendrobiums do. The leaves do fall, but all summer long they do prepare food, they do photosynthesize, and then the orchid draws all of those nutrients from the leaves, storing it in the canes, in the pseudobulbs, and then letting go of the leaves. So the stem is full of good stuff for the keikis. If I were to remove them, I would deprive them of some very nutritious substances, which they are capable of producing themselves, but look how tiny they are. They will definitely need a little bit more help, at this stage at least. So why did I make all of this speech? Because how I'm going to pot them is attached to the cane in this manner. And this pot is just a little bit uncomfortable to do that. I can definitely use this pot again, but I won't. I will reuse the medium inside because it's fresh. What I will use is this pot, which is wider, and look how elegantly I can place these keikis. I can make them sit without medium even. Ta-da, there you go. It is a little bit more comfortable, a little bit safer for the keikis, is just a preference. But what I wanted to stress out here is the fact that at this stage, I really don't think it's the wisest idea, if that's the term, the most wise idea to actually detach them individually. I want to let them be just to draw all of the goodness stored in this cane, which does not look like much, but trust me, it has a lot to offer. It grew these keikis so far. So with the theory out of the way, let's just go ahead and pot them up. Okay, so as I was saying, I will reuse this medium partly because it's not even broken down at all since I didn't water this orchid. It was in its winter rest. So all I need to do is get it out of here. Look at that. It actually smells like it just came out of the bag. And now I'm going to arrange it following my typical potting system. Moss at the bottom to absorb whatever falls at the bottom of the decorative container. And then mix it up with bark all the way to the top. And on the second to last layer, I will add the sphagnum moss. This is where I will arrange my orchid because I want the roots to be in contact with moist medium from the get-go. I want them to start absorbing as soon as they can. And by the way, there's another thing I didn't mention here. When roots first start to grow, they don't absorb water. They need a little bit of time to form their structures and then they will start to absorb water. So we'll see if these roots are long enough to absorb. But anyway, at this stage, if you would remove the keikis, you would be at risk of the roots not even being able to absorb water just yet. That's why when we remove keikis, we say that the roots should be 10 centimeters or so, just to make sure they're ready to absorb water. So we'll see what the case here will be, but definitely these keikis need the mother cane. Here is where I will also add some slow release fertilizer, because not only is this orchid a fast grower in the growing season, but you can imagine it also needs quite a lot of nutrients. So that will help it out. And the last layer will obviously be bark. I'm trying to only choose the bark here, but if I have a little bit of sphagnum moss, I'm not gonna be upset about it. But as much as possible, I do prefer to have bark at the top just to avoid excessive algae forming right at the top, right where the roots are, where they can damage the root tips. Okay, so at this point, I am pretty much done. Yes, I know it's not the most stable thing you've ever seen, it's not the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but it has a purpose. Now, in the future, when the keikis will root themselves and they will become more independent, definitely I will cut away these excess parts because they're just in the way. It's pretty much a snagging waiting to happen. I'm gonna bump into this orchid and it's gonna fall on the floor. It's not gonna be pretty, but for now, I'm gonna be extra mindful of where I put it and how I treat it until these keikis root in, which I do believe will happen within a couple of months, maybe a little bit more. And then definitely these parts will probably already be pretty shriveled. I can definitely cut them. They might even be dry. For now though, I choose to leave everything, even this clump right here, which I could cut away. I just don't want to at this point. I want the keikis to be as least set back as possible. If they don't develop like they do have a mother cane to depend on, they will be severely set back and I will have to wait maybe 2 years for this orchid to grow big enough to bloom. And I'd rather not do that. It's okay if setback happens, but I'd rather have flowers sooner rather than later, which I'm pretty sure I'm more at risk if I cut the cane. So I'm just gonna let it be. Another thing I wanna do is just wet a little bit the root system of the keikis just to see how absorbent the roots are for my own curiosity and hopefully your curiosity as well. And we're pretty much done for today. So yeah, there we are. As I thought, these roots, if I manage not to remove them from the pot at this point, they're not actually absorbing anything. So removing them from the mother cane, not the most brilliant idea because they cannot even hydrate themselves. Anyway, what I'm going to do is just pick this up at a later date to give you a little bit of an update before I publish the video. But yeah, that's definitely how I would go about rescuing, let's say, these type of keikis. Kind of counterintuitive. Most people will just remove them. I think that will just set them back more than anything, not to mention risk losing them entirely. But yeah, I'm gonna pick this up in a little while. Alrighty, here we are about a week and a half later, and the snagging incident it happened, just like I have foreseen. So I'm just gonna take this opportunity to repot, let's say, but also to show you that the roots, some of them have started to absorb water. They're starting to green up, they grew a little bit more, but also I'm noticing that the root tips are not growing as fast or as good as I would like them to. And this is because the orchid was just a little bit too on top of the medium. And again, it has to do with this cane, which is becoming a little bit of a nuisance, to be honest. So what it did was push the orchid up, so the roots were not actually sitting on the moss. So I had to spray them multiple times a day, which was kind of difficult for me. I could not stay on top of them, and for any person who has a full-time job or takes care of their family, the scenario of misting roots 10 times a day is just not realistic. So we need to do something about it. And what I will do is remove this top layer. I'm gonna put it back, no worries, but I wanna get to the sphagnum moss layer and make sure that the roots are sitting on moss, but also I'm gonna cut away a bit of this cane. Not everything, but this section, this is the problem. It's just sticking out way too much. Right, so, I do remember this is sanitized, but just in case it's not, let's do this real fast. All right, so I do want to keep all of this cane as much as possible, but yeah, see, this part just is too awkward. So I'm gonna cut it here. And let's see if I can place these little keikis, and guess what? I absolutely can. Okay, let's remove a little bit more bark. Add a little bit more moss, why not? Ooh, this is dry. Much, much better. All of this cane now fits in the pot and it's not going anywhere. Look at that. It's super stable because this cane is putting pressure on the sides of the pot. There's no snagging going on unless I will literally bump into this pot, which will not happen. So I think this time we are good to go. And all of these roots are actually touching the sphagnum moss now, which is great. So I'll go ahead and put the bark on top. Even if I bury slightly this cane, it's okay. In the end, it will shrivel up and just dry off, so I can remove it then. And also the bark doesn't really retain much water. It's just used for shading purposes, really. So nothing bad will happen if parts of this cane are a little buried. What I want is for the roots to grow inside the pot and to not have those root tips just stop growing, which happens a lot in dry conditions. And that is a lot better. Now, just to be sure, I will once every few days just spray a little bit the top, not wait an entire week. Even if I wet the keikis, that's absolutely fine. It's so hot right now and it's so ventilated in the nighttime here that the risk of actually rotting anything is minimal for me in summertime due to the low humidity, or lower humidity. It's not very low, and also the high temperatures and air movement in the greenhouse. I do run fans in the nighttime in the greenhouse. In the winter time, that's a lot more problematic, but now it's not. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna be okay. And there we have it. I think the job is done. I'll give you some close-ups. The roots are in contact with the sphagnum moss, which is what we want. So there's no reason for them to not grow this time, but I can already see the variegation in the newer leaves starting to peek through. Because of the brighter light, you can see it's slightly pink, red. That is just beautiful. It's not super common to have this in orchids. It is quite common with other plants, other very popular houseplants, but with orchids, not so much. So it's a beautiful variety, and you would have been ashamed to lose it, but I think it's gonna be okay. So, alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this and I hope you learned something new. Bottom line, always a great idea to leave the stem on because it does feed the keikis, again, not with minerals or nutrients. Not only that, but also actually elaborated sap, prepared food. Keikis shouldn't really be separated when they're tiny little babies. I think you need to keep them on as long as possible. If you can keep them on a whole season and then you see they start new growth, of their own, then that's when you should separate them. If you don't have a choice, I think this will do. And yeah, enough blabbing, let's end it here. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day. Subscribe to my channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, and other fun orchid subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider becoming a member or visit the merch store linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's always nice to stay in touch there as well. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!